Welcome back to Stamps Old World UK, the home for philatelists and collectors who love exploring the history and market values of classic postal issues. Today, we are analyzing the famous United States 2-cent red Washington stamp from the Washington Franklin series. Printed in billions throughout the early 20th century, this iconic issue features a detailed profile portrait of George Washington framed by ornamental scrollwork. While hundreds of millions of these red 2-cent stamps were circulated for standard domestic letters, subtle variations in production, paper type, and perforation mean that prices in today's market range from pennies to several $100s. For the standard used versions found on everyday old letters or postmarked cards, market value remains modest. A typical used example with standard cancellation marks generally trades between 25 cents and $2 in the secondary market. If you happen to have a standard unused version with original gum on the back, values usually range between $3 and $15, depending on whether the stamp is lightly hinged or mint never hinged. Modern online marketplaces see thousands of these common varieties trading daily within these exact price brackets. However, condition, centering, and specific catalog classifications play a massive role in pushing values higher. When looking at early flat plate pressings like Scott No. 406 or unwatermarked issues like Scott No. 499, pristine centering with wide, even margins can instantly raise the value of an unused stamp into the range of $30 to $50. Furthermore, scarce plate varieties and experimental pressings such as the Scott No. 500 Type 1 of variation command significantly higher prices. Unused examples of these rare subtypes routinely bring to $100 to $600 or more at specialized auctions. Depending on centering and gum condition, when evaluating your own red 2-cent Washington stamp, pay close attention to several key identifying factors. Gauge the perforations using a perforation gauge to distinguish between perf 10, 11, and 12 varieties. Inspect the watermark using specialized fluid, as watermarked versus unwatermarked paper creates major value differences across identical-looking designs. Finally, examine the design details under magnification, particularly around Washington's hair strands, toga button, and the lettering, to spot rare die types or double impressions that turn an ordinary stamp into a valuable treasure. Next up, the Washington Franklin issue introduced in 1908. This stamp features a fine profile portrait of Benjamin Franklin framed by an ornate oval frame and classic corner ornaments. Printed in huge quantities to satisfy the standard postcard and printed matter mail rates, this 1-cent issue is a staple of early American philately for common used varieties with typical postal cancellations. Market values remain very accessible for collectors. Standard used examples that circulated on turn-of-the-century postcards or letters generally trade for 50 cents to $2 in today's secondary market. Unused or mint examples with original gum usually range between $5 and $15, provided the centering is average and there are no tears, thins, or heavy hinge marks. These affordable price points make it an easy entry point for anyone building a historical United States collection. However, specific catalog variations, rare printings, and paper types can drive prices significantly higher. For example, early issues produced by the American Banknote Company in 1890, cataloged as Scott No. 219, can command $45 to over $100 for mint, never-hinged specimens with strong centering. Even rarer variations within the series, such as coil stamps, imperforate pairs, or early experimental coil issues from the early 1900s, can easily reach several $100s at specialized philatelic auctions. When evaluating your blue 1-cent Franklin stamp, pay close attention to critical physical traits. Check the perforation count along the edges using a perforation gauge, as differences between perforation 10, 11, or 12 can signal a drastically different issue number. Additionally, use a watermark tray and fluid to detect single-line or double-line USPS watermarks, which separate standard issues from rarer production batches. Inspecting the stamp under strong magnification will help you evaluate margin symmetry and confirm whether the original gum remains completely intact. Next up, we are looking at the 3-cent purple commemorative issue from 1951, titled Washington Saves His Army at Brooklyn, cataloged as Scott No. 1003. This issue commemorates the 175th anniversary of the Battle of Brooklyn in 1776. The design depicts General George Washington on horseback leading his troops during their historic tactical retreat near the Fulton Ferry House, because over 116 million copies were printed by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. This stamp remains very common today. Used examples with clear cancellations typically sell for around 35 cents to 50 cents. Mint condition single stamps with full original gum generally fetch 40 cents to $1. Entire mint sheets or blocks of 4 sell for around $2 to $20, making them highly accessible for collectors interested in American Revolutionary War history, while standard singles have modest value. Pristine unhinged stamps with exceptionally high centering grades can fetch $30 or more. First day covers canceled on December 10, 1951, in Brooklyn, New York, generally trade between $2 and $5. When checking your stamp, inspect the rotary press perforations measuring 11 by 10.5 to confirm its authenticity. Next up, the United States 5-cent red-brown Benjamin Franklin stamp from 1847, cataloged as Scott No. 1. This issue holds the prestigious title of being the very first official general issue postage stamp released by the United States Post Office Department, engraved by Rawdon, Wright, Hatch, and Edson. It features a portrait of Benjamin Franklin, who served as America's first Postmaster General, surrounded by an oval frame with 5 cents marked at the bottom corners as America's inaugural postal issue. This stamp was printed imperforate, meaning every stamp had to be manually cut from the sheet using scissors. Because of its legendary status and limited surviving numbers, market values today remain strong across all conditions. A standard used example with 4 clear margins and a classic cancellation mark typically commands between $300 and $800, depending on color freshness and margin width. If the stamp has minor faults, tears, or touched margins, used copies can still fetch around $150 to $300 for unused or mint condition copies. Values jump dramatically into elite investment territory. An unused Scott No. 1 without original gum generally sells between $4,000 and $6,000 in the current market. Meanwhile, an unused specimen with original gum and superb for margin centering can easily reach $13,000 to over $23,000 at major philatelic auctions. When inspecting a potential 1847 5-cent Franklin, pay strict attention to margin symmetry and paper composition. Genuine copies were printed on thin bluish wove paper without watermarks, and full margins around all 4 outer border lines significantly enhance value. Collectors should also watch out for official 1875 reproductions cataloged as Scott No. 3, as well as clever fakes or altered regular issues. Next up, we are analyzing the United States 1-cent blue Benjamin Franklin issue from 1861. Printed by the National Bank Note Company. This design features a detailed side profile bust of Benjamin Franklin framed by ornate scrollwork, with United States postage arched across the top and 1 cent along the bottom curve. Introduced right at the onset of the American Civil War, this issue replaced earlier postage designs to prevent southern states from using old federal stamps. In today's philatelic market, values for this classic 19th century issue depend heavily on whether the stamp is a standard perforate issue like Scott No. 63 or one of its rarer grill variations. A standard used copy of Scott No. 63 with decent centering and a typical postmark generally trades between $20 and $50. Unused or mint copies with original gum are considerably scarcer, usually fetching between $200 and $600 depending on eye appeal and paper freshness. However, condition and production variations can elevate this stamp into significant value territory. Examples featuring clear grill impressions on the back, such as the Z grill variation cataloged as Scott No. 85A, are exceptionally rare and reach astronomical figures in the thousands or millions at public auctions. Even standard, regular issues with pristine centering, well-balanced margins, and exceptional color intensity routinely sell for several $100s when professionally graded. When evaluating your 1-cent blue 1861 Franklin stamp, carefully examine the back for any faint embossed grid patterns that indicate a grill type. Additionally, check for paper faults, thin spots, or trimmed perforations, as 19th century stamps often suffered damage from rough handling or tight spacing during production. Next up, the famous United States 4-cent lavender Abraham Lincoln stamp from the 1954 Liberty series. Cataloged as Scott No. 1036, this issue features a detailed, dignified portrait of the 16th President of the United States based on an original drawing by artist Douglas Gorsline. Issued in November 1954, This stamp was widely used across the nation for standard first-class domestic letter postage during the mid-20th century, because the Bureau of Engraving and Printing produced tens of billions of these stamps. They remain exceptionally common in today's collector market. A standard used copy with a light postal cancellation generally trades for around 10 cents to 25 cents. Unused or mint condition examples with full original gum typically fetch between 25 cents and $1. Full sheets or plate blocks of 4 are also readily available, usually selling for $2 to $8 depending on paper condition, while standard singles carry modest value. Certain high-grade mint condition stamps and plate error varieties can command higher prices. Mint never-hinged specimens that achieve top professional centering grades, such as grade 95 or 98, can sell for $20 to $50 at philatelic auctions. Collectors also keep an eye out for rare production errors, such as severe perforation shifts or dry printing varieties, which can drive values up to $15 or $25 when evaluating your for-cent Lincoln stamp. Check the perforations, which measure 11 by 10.5 on the standard rotary press printing. Make sure to inspect the gum on unused copies to confirm whether it is mint never hinged, as original condition strongly impacts grading. Next up, the United States Abraham Lincoln Classics Forever stamp, issued in 2016, cataloged as Scott number 5079E. This issue was released as part of the Special Classics Forever souvenir sheet at the World Stamp Show in New York. The design recreates the iconic 1866 15-cent black Abraham Lincoln issue, originally released shortly after Lincoln's assassination, engraving the original classic portrait in intaglio printing and updating it with modern forever postal validity, because this stamp was issued in modern quantities for collectors and everyday post. Its general market value reflects its modern face value status. A single unused mint copy generally trades for around 68 cents to $1.50 in secondary online markets. Used examples carrying light postmarks sell for approximately 35 cents to 50 cents. Entire intact Classics Forever souvenir sheets containing all 6 classic reissues routinely sell for $12 to $20 depending on condition, while standard single copies remain affordable. Specific collectible formats carry slight premiums. First day covers canceled on June 1, 2016, in New York, usually trade between $3 and $6. Complete press sheets featuring full, uncut arrangements of the souvenir sheet can command prices ranging from $35 to $50 among specialized modern collectors when examining your 2016 Lincoln stamp. Notice the distinct modern details that separate it from the 1866 original. Look at the lower corners, where the letters U and S replace the original 15-cent denomination, along with the word forever printed cleanly across the lower arch. The stamp also features microprinting and modern self-adhesive backing rather than 19th-century lick and stick gum. Next up, the famous United States 5-cent blue-gray George Washington stamp, issued in November 1962, cataloged as Scott number 1213. This regular issue replaced the 4-cent rate to reflect the rising cost of standard first-class domestic mail in the early 1960s. The crisp design features a prominent side profile of George Washington facing left, based on a classic bust sculpted by Jean-Antoine Howden, with 5 cents U.S. postage clearly stated along the bottom border, because the Bureau of Engraving and Printing produced over 35 billion copies of this stamp using rotary press techniques. It remains one of the most common mid-century American issues in existence. In today's secondary market, a standard used single stamp with a typical postmark routinely trades for around 10 cents to 35 cents. Unused mint copies with full original gum are equally accessible, generally selling for 35 cents to $1. Collectors looking for full mint sheets or plate blocks of 4 can easily find them priced between $2 and $15, even though standard singles carry modest catalog values. Exceptional eye appeal and specific production errors can drive collector interest higher. Mint never-hinged specimens that receive top professional centering grades, such as grade 95 or 98, can command $20 to $40 at specialized philatelic auctions. Furthermore, collectors active on online platforms pay close attention to unusual misperforations, tagging variations, or severe ink shifts, which can elevate single copies into the $10 to $30 price range when inspecting your 5-cent blue-gray Washington stamp. Check the edge perforations, which measure 11 by 10 and a half on standard rotary press printings. Be sure to examine the paper for tagging under ultraviolet light, as early experimental luminescent tag test versions from late 1963 carry a slight premium over untagged originals. Evaluating the freshness of the blue-gray ink and confirming full original gum will ensure you accurately grade your copy. Next up, the popular 18-cent flag over field stamp, featuring the line for Amber Waves of Grain, issued in 1981, cataloged as Scott number 1890. This colorful definitive issue was released by the United States Postal Service as part of the Flag and Anthem series. Inspired by the iconic American song America the Beautiful, the design prominently displays a vibrant American flag set above a brown-toned harvest field with a combine tractor, with 18 cents and the famous lyrics cleanly printed along the bottom, because the Bureau of Engraving and Printing produced hundreds of millions of these stamps to meet domestic letter rates in the early 1980s. They remain very common in today's secondary market. A standard used single stamp carrying a typical postmark generally trades for 10 cents to 25 cents. Unused or mint condition copies with full original gum usually sell for 35 cents to $1. For collectors interested in full mint sheets or plate blocks of 4, values typically range from $2 to $10 depending on overall paper freshness and edge condition, while standard single copies carry modest value. Certain high-grade items and error varieties attract additional collector interest. Mint never-hinged singles that receive top professional centering grades, such as grade 95 or 98, can command $15 to $30 at specialized auctions. Collectors on online trading platforms also actively seek out misperforation errors or dramatic color shifts, which can elevate single copies into the $10 to $25 price range. When inspecting your 18-cent Amber Waves of Grain stamp, pay attention to the edge perforations, which measure 11 on standard sheet printings. Check the back of unused copies to verify full original gum and confirm whether the stamp is mint never hinged or lightly hinged. Evaluating the sharpness of the red and blue inks against the paper will help you grade your copy accurately. Next up, the 3-cent blue-violet Colorado statehood commemorative issue from 1951, cataloged as Scott number 1001. This stamp was issued on August 1, 1951, to mark the 75th anniversary of Colorado joining the Union as the 38th state in 1876. The detailed composite design showcases the Denver Capitol building in the center, flanked by the Mount of the Holy Cross on the left, a bucking bronco with a cowboy on the right, along with the state flower, the Columbine, and the official Colorado state seal, because the Bureau of Engraving and Printing produced nearly 115 million copies of this rotary press issue. It remains very easy to find in today's collector market. A standard used example with a typical postal cancellation generally trades for around 25 cents to 35 cents. Unused or mint single copies with original gum are equally affordable, usually fetching 35 cents to 75 cents. Full mint sheets or plate blocks of 4 typically sell for $2 to $18 depending on paper freshness and edge condition, while standard single copies carry modest value. High-grade mint specimens and collectible covers can fetch higher prices. Mint never-hinged singles that achieve top professional centering grades, such as grade 98 Superb, can command up to $55 at specialized auctions. First-day covers canceled on August 1, 1951, in Minturn, Colorado, generally sell for $2 to $5. When inspecting your 3-cent Colorado statehood stamp, check the edge perforations, which measure 11 by 10 and a half. Make sure to examine unused copies to verify full original gum and ensure the blue-violet ink retains its original clarity. Thank you for watching Stamps Old World UK, and be sure to subscribe for more updates on classic world stamps. Welcome back to Stamps Old World UK, your ultimate destination for exploring rare postal gems, fascinating history, and real market valuations from around the globe. Today, we are taking a closer look at a quintessential piece of American philatelic history, the United States 2-cent postage due stamp. First introduced in the late 19th century following an act of Congress in 1879, these distinct back-of-the-book stamps served a very specific purpose in the postal ecosystem. Unlike standard definitive stamps that senders bought to prepay for mail delivery, postage due stamps were affixed by postal workers when a letter had insufficient postage. The recipient, rather than the sender, had to pay the remaining 2 cents. indicated by the prominent central numeral before receiving their mail. This particular design features a bold numeral 2 set within an ornate oval frame, surrounded by intricate engine-turned lathe work. Produced across several printings by the American Bank Note Company and later the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, these classic stamps were issued in shades varying from rich reddish brown to deep claret. Collecting postage dues offers a thrilling challenge because subtle variations in paper, perforations, and watermarks can dramatically change the identity and scarcity of an individual stamp when it comes to market value in today's active collector marketplace. Prices are strongly influenced by condition, gum state, and centering. A standard used copy with typical cancellations and minor wear generally trades in the range of $4 to $20. However, if you possess an unused or mint example with original gum, the valuation rises significantly. Mint-hinged specimens usually clear anywhere from $30 to $75, while well-centered, pristine mint never-hinged copies from early issues like Scott J2 or J32 can command between $150 and $350 or more at specialized auctions. Whether you are building a comprehensive United States back-of-the-book collection or simply appreciate 19th-century engraving craftsmanship, this 2-cent postage due stamp is a magnificent addition to any portfolio. Next up, the 1963 United States 5-cent flag over White House stamp, catalogued as Scott No. 1208, issued on January 9, 1963, in Washington, D.C. This landmark release was created to meet the increased 5-cent domestic first-class letter rate. It holds a unique place in postal history as the very first definitive U.S. postage stamp to showcase the 50-star American flag flying proudly above the executive mansion. What makes this particular design so fascinating to philatelists is its minimalist aesthetic. It is famous for being one of the only major United States issues to completely omit country lettering such as US or USA on the front, relying entirely on the recognizable imagery of the American flag and the White House to indicate its origin. Printed by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing using the Jory press in vibrant blue and red inks, over 3 billion copies were produced to satisfy the immense demand of the American public throughout the 1960s when evaluating its market value in today's philatelic market. Its massive production run makes standard copies very affordable and accessible for collectors. A typical used single stamp or a standard mint never-hinged individual copy generally trades for around 20 cents to $1 in the secondary market. However, specialty formats command slightly higher prices, with mint plate blocks usually selling between $2 and $5, while official first-day covers fetch around $3 to $6. Rare production freaks, color misalignments, or dramatic double perforation errors are where the real premium lies, occasionally reaching anywhere from $50 to over $200 depending on the severity of the flaw. Whether you are an avid collector of American flag thematic stamps or just beginning your journey into modern postal history, the 1963 5-cent flag over White House stamp remains a beloved symbol of mid-20th century design. Next up, the famous 1847 5-cent Benjamin Franklin stamp, catalogued as Scott No. 1, released on July 1, 1847. This iconic piece of history represents the very first federal postage stamp ever issued by the United States government. Printed by Rawdon, Wright, Hatch, and Edson using line engraving on thin bluish wove paper. This imperforate stamp was designed to pay the rate for a half-ounce letter, traveling distances under 300 miles. The design features a classic 3/4 profile portrait of Benjamin Franklin set within an oval frame, flanked by the initials U and S at the top corners and large numerals 5 at the bottom. Choosing Franklin was deeply symbolic, as he had served as America's very first Postmaster General and remained a unifying figure for the nation. Issued in rich shades of red-brown, brown, and orange-brown, these stamps were printed without perforations, meaning postal clerks had to manually cut each individual stamp out of the sheet with scissors, because this is America's inaugural postage issue. Demand among collectors is extraordinarily high, making market value heavily dependent on condition, cancellation type, and margin size. A used example with minor faults or tight margins can still command around $200 to $400 in today's market. Meanwhile, a used copy with for clear, full margins and a crisp cancellation generally trades between $500 and $1,500. For serious investors, pristine unused or mint specimens are exceptionally rare, easily fetching anywhere from $4,000 to well over $20,000 depending on the presence of original gum. Holding a piece like the 1847 5-cent Franklin allows you to connect directly with the birth of modern American postal communication. Next up, the 1940 10-cent Booker T. Washington stamp, cataloged as Scott number 873, issued on April 7, 1940, at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. This stamp was part of the celebrated Famous Americans series under the Educators subgroup. Most importantly, it holds a landmark distinction in United States postal heritage as the very first U.S. postage stamp to honor an African American born into slavery in Virginia in 1856. Booker T. Washington rose through relentless dedication to become one of the most influential educators, authors, and reformers of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. As the founding principal of the Tuskegee Normal and Industrial Institute, he championed practical vocational education, self-reliance, and economic empowerment for Black Americans. The stamp design, rendered in a deep, rich dark brown, features a regal portrait of Washington framed within a classic circular border, complete with an emblem of the lamp of learning at the bottom to signify his lifelong dedication to education. When looking at current market values in today's stamp market, over 14 million copies were printed by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, making this historic issue accessible to collectors at every level. A standard used single in average condition typically sells between $1 and $3. If you are looking for a nice mint-hinged example, prices generally range from $3 to $5. While a pristine mint never-hinged copy with strong centering commands between $6 and $10. Full mint plate blocks and pristine first-day covers from the Tuskegee release usually fetch anywhere from $15 to $50, depending on overall quality and postmark clarity. Adding the 1940 Booker T. Washington stamp to your album is not just about collecting a beautiful piece of vintage engraving, but owning a historic milestone in social and postal history. Next up, the 2022 U.S. Flags Forever stamp, cataloged across Scott numbers 5654 through 5659, officially released on January 9, 2022, in Findlay, Ohio, famously known as Flag City, USA. This stamp continues America's long-standing tradition of honoring the national flag on definitive postage. The striking artwork was created by illustrator Laura Stutzman under the direction of Ethel Kessler. To capture the dynamic, patriotic image, Stutzman took 3 separate photographs of the same American flag waving in the wind moments apart, then combined them into a single composition featuring 3 flags rippling against a clear blue sky. Issued in panes, booklets, and coils produced by both the Banknote Corporation of America and Ashton Potter. This issue carries distinct microprinting and perforation variations that make identifying each variant a fun challenge for modern specialists when looking at market value in today's secondary marketplace. Because this is a standard first-class forever stamp produced in massive quantities, its primary financial value equals current domestic letter postage rates. Individual unused stamps generally trade between 75 cents and $1.50 in the collector retail market. Complete mint panes or booklets of 20 typically hold a market value of $15 to $25, while mint coil rolls of 100 or specialized strip formats with intact plate numbers can range from $70 to over $100, whether you use them for everyday postage or collect the subtle printing varieties. The 2022 U.S. Flags issue is a vibrant representation of contemporary postal art. Next up, the iconic green 1-cent Benjamin Franklin stamp from the famous Washington Franklin series, produced extensively between 1908 and the 1920s, printed by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. This workhorse of American post offices was designed to meet the standard rate for postcards and third-class circular mail during an era when postcards were the primary way millions of people stayed in quick daily communication. The elegant design showcases a side-profile bust of Benjamin Franklin set within an oval frame, crowned with U.S. postage across the top, framed by delicate laurel leaves, and grounded by 1 cent along the bottom border. Because this design was printed over many years using multiple printing techniques including flat plate presses, rotary presses, and offset methods, along with various perforation gauges and paper types. It produced dozens of distinct catalog listings such as Scott numbers 331, 405, 424, and 498 when evaluating market values in today's philatelic marketplace. The vast majority of these standard 1-cent green Franklin stamps were printed in the billions, making common used copies worth between 20 cents and $1. Mint-hinged examples generally bring $1 to $3, while pristine mint never-hinged singles with great centering typically trade for $5 to $15. However, specialists actively hunt for ultra-rare rotary press waste and coil varieties, such as the famous Scott 594 and Scott 596, which feature microscopic height and perforation variations that can command anywhere from thousands to tens of thousands of dollars at major auctions. Whether you are trying to complete a traditional Washington Franklin album page or double-checking your attic finds for a hidden rotary press rarity, the green 1-cent Franklin remains an enduring cornerstone of 20th century American postal heritage. Next up, the legendary 1847 10-cent George Washington stamp, cataloged as Scott No. 2, released on July 1, 1847. Alongside its 5-cent Benjamin Franklin counterpart. This magnificent stamp represents the higher denomination of America's very first official nationwide postal issue, produced by the security engraving firm Rodden, Wright, Hatch and Edson using line engraving on thin bluish wove paper. This imperforate stamp was designed to prepay the postage rate for heavier letters or single, half-ounce letters traveling distances greater than 300 miles. The design of Scott No. 2 is universally admired for its classic elegance and majestic detail. Printed exclusively in deep black ink, the central vignette showcases a 3/4 profile portrait of George Washington based on the famous Gilbert Stuart portrait painting. Arched above Washington's head are the bold words U.S. Post Office, while the bottom of the frame displays 10 cents flanked by large numerals X and 10 in the lower corners. Because federal issue stamps were completely new to postmasters and the public in 1847, these sheets were issued without perforations, requiring postal clerks to slice each stamp out of 200 subject panes using scissors or razor blades. In today's active international auction market, the 1847 10-cent Washington stamp is a highly coveted trophy item whose value is heavily determined by physical condition, margin width, and postmark quality. A used example with small faults or margins touching the design usually brings between $500 and $1,500. However, an attractive used copy with clear, full margins and a crisp red or blue cancellation can easily range from $2,000 to $4,000. Truly rare unused examples without gum sell for around $10,000 to $18,000, while pristine mint copies boasting original gum are extraordinarily scarce, fetching anywhere from $35,000 to over $60,000 at major public sales. Additionally, historical emergency bisects cut in half to pay 5-cent rates on cover can command upwards of $15,000 to $30,000. Adding a genuine 1847 10-cent Washington to a philatelic cabinet is the dream of virtually every serious collector of classic United States postal history. Next up, the 2025 U.S. Postal Service 250th Anniversary Benjamin Franklin Forever Stamp, issued in 2025 to commemorate 2.5 centuries since the founding of the American postal system in 1775. This release pays homage to Benjamin Franklin, who was appointed the nation's very first postmaster general by the Continental Congress. What makes this issue particularly captivating to collectors is its direct visual throwback to America's first official postage stamp, the famous 1847 5-cent issue. The central design replicates the iconic engraved portrait of Benjamin Franklin set within an oval frame, rendered in a crisp slate blue tone. However, modern updates distinguish this issue, the dates 1775 and 2025 flanked by a red star appear prominently across the top, while the bottom border features modern Forever USA lettering alongside the text U.S. Postal Service, complete with modern perforations and microprinting when evaluating its market value in today's secondary marketplace. Because this is a widely distributed commemorative forever stamp, Individual unused stamps trade around 73 cents to $1.50, corresponding to first-class postage values. Complete mint panes of 20 generally retain a retail market value of $15 to $25 among collectors, while official first-day covers and special digital color postmark souvenir covers from the 2025 release typically sell between $4 and $8. This beautiful release bridges 250 years of postal heritage, combining classic 19th century engraving art with 21st century stamp production. Next up, the United States 1-cent postage due stamp. First authorized by an act of Congress and introduced on July 1, 1879, these functional issues revolutionized how underpaid mail was processed across American post offices. Unlike regular definitive postage stamps purchased by senders to prepay mail delivery, postage due stamps were applied by postmasters to indicate the exact amount of short paid postage that the recipient had to pay upon delivery. The design features a prominent central numeral 1 enclosed within an intricate oval frame surrounded by detailed engine-turned lathe work and classic 19th century scrollwork. Produced initially by the American Bank Note Company and later by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, this historic design spans multiple catalog numbers, including Scott J1, J15, and J22, depending on printing production years, paper types, and subtle color shifts ranging from deep brown and red-brown to vibrant bright claret when assessing its current market value in today's active collector market. Condition, gum quality, and color variety play a major role in pricing. Standard used copies with typical postal cancellations usually trade between $3 and $15. Nice unused or mint-hinged examples generally sell in the range of $25 to $80. However, pristine mint never hinged specimens boasting rich color and excellent centering from early printings like Scott J1 or J15 can command anywhere from $150 to $300 or more. Whether you are completing a specialized collection of United States back of the book issues or admiring classic American banknote engraving, this 1-cent postage due stamp remains an essential piece of postal history. Next up, the 1923 16-cent Air Service Emblem Airmail Stamp, cataloged as Scott No. C5, issued on August 17, 1923, in Washington, D.C. This stamp was part of a landmark 3-stamp airmail series introduced as the United States Post Office Department prepared to inaugurate continuous night and day transcontinental airmail service between New York and San Francisco, printed by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing in a striking dark blue shade using flat plate presses. This stamp holds special historical significance as the very first U.S. airmail issue to feature the words airmail explicitly embedded into its graphic design. The central vignette showcases the official winged insignia of the U.S. Air Service, a globe flanked by outstretched wings framed by twin circular banners displaying 16 cents at the lower corners. Issued at a time when transcontinental mail routes were divided into 3 distinct zonal rates of 8 cents per zone, this 16-cent denomination was designed specifically to prepay letter postage crossing 2 airmail zones when evaluating current market values in today's philatelic marketplace. Scott No. C5 is highly sought after by airmail specialists, with values strongly influenced by centering, gum quality, and paper condition. A sound used example with a typical cancel generally trades between $15 and $40. If you are looking for a nice mint-hinged copy, prices usually range from $40 to $90, while pristine mint never-hinged singles boasting deep color and well-centered margins routinely command anywhere from $120 to $250 or more at specialized sales. Whether you specialize in early back-of-the-book airmails or simply admire the pioneering spirit of early 20th century aviation, the 1923 16-cent Air Service Emblem Stamp is a classic masterpiece for any portfolio. Next up, the 1866 15-cent Abraham Lincoln Stamp, cataloged as Scott No. 77, released in April 1866, just 1 year after President Lincoln was tragically assassinated. This issue holds the landmark distinction of being the world's very first postage stamp produced to honor Abraham Lincoln, as well as America's inaugural 15-cent denomination stamp printed in deep jet black by the National Bank Note Company. The somber color was deliberately selected to serve as a national mourning stamp for the fallen president. The artwork features a striking, detailed portrait of a bearded Lincoln set within an oval frame, flanked by classical fasces columns representing strength and unity. The top banner reads U.S. postage alongside numerals 15, while the bottom frame displays 15 cents anchored by the letters U and S. This stamp was originally introduced to cover the newly established 15-cent registered mail fee, as well as single-letter rates to several European countries such as France, Belgium, and Germany, when assessing its current market value in today's active philatelic marketplace. Scott number 77 remains a highly prized collectible whose price is heavily dictated by centering, physical condition, and gum status. A sound-used copy with typical 19th century cancellations usually sells between $75 and $250 depending on margin quality. Unused or mint-hinged examples with good centering generally command between $1,000 and $2,500. Meanwhile, pristine, well-centered mint, never-hinged specimens boasting original gum are exceptionally scarce, routinely bringing anywhere from $3,500 to over $10,000 at major specialized public auctions. Adding an 1866 15-cent Lincoln mourning stamp to your cabinet means owning a vital piece of Civil War-era history and presidential heritage. Next up, the 1898 cents Farming in the West stamp, cataloged as Scott number 286, issued on June 17, 1898, as part of the iconic Trans-Mississippi Exposition issue. This stamp was produced to celebrate the development and settlement of the American West, printed by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing in a rich copper red shade. This issue is widely regarded as part of one of the most beautiful pictorial stamp sets ever produced by the United States. The striking central vignette depicts a massive horse-drawn plowing team working vast fields on an American prairie, capturing the rugged spirit of frontier agriculture at the turn of the 20th century. The artwork was based on a real photograph taken on the famous Amenia and Sharon Bonanza Farm in North Dakota. Arched across the top are the words United States of America, flanked by large numerals 2, while the bottom border reads Farming in the West along with postage to cents. Introduced to cover the standard first-class domestic letter rate, over 159 million copies were issued, making it the most heavily used denomination of the entire Trans-Mississippi series when assessing its current market value in today's active philatelic marketplace. Scott number 286 remains a staple for classic collectors, with values heavily influenced by centering, original gum status, and physical condition. A used copy with average centering and a clean cancellation typically trades between $2 and $6. If you are looking for a nice mint-hinged example, prices generally range from $15 to $35. Meanwhile, pristine mint never-hinged specimens boasting rich copper red color and well-centered margins routinely command anywhere from $60 to $150 or more at specialized sales. Whether you are completing a full Trans-Mississippi set or simply admiring classic American engraving art, the 1898 cent Farming in the West stamp is a timeless piece of postal history. Next up, the magnificent 1893 Isabella and Columbus stamp from the Columbian Exposition issue, cataloged as Scott number 244, issued in early 1893 to coincide with the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. This stamp holds a truly unique landmark distinction in United States postal heritage as the very first U.S. postage stamp to feature a portrait of an identifiable woman printed by the American Bank Note Company in a rich crimson shade. The exquisite engraving showcases side-by-side circular vignettes featuring Queen Isabella of Spain on the left and Christopher Columbus on the right. Arched across the top of the frame are the words United States of America and postage for dollars, flanked by prominent dollar signs. At the time of issue, $4 was an extraordinary sum for a postage stamp, equivalent to around $130 today, because it far exceeded typical letter rates. Fewer than 23,000 copies were actually sold to the public, with many purchased solely by wealthy collectors and dealers rather than used for ordinary mail. When assessing its current market value in today's active international philatelic marketplace, Scott number 244 is an elite trophy piece whose valuation is heavily dictated by condition, centering, and gum status. A used example with minor defects or tight margins typically trades between $400 and $800. while a sound used copy with 4 full margins and a light cancellation easily commands $1,100 to $1,500. Unused or mint-hinged specimens generally sell in the range of $1,800 to $2,500. Meanwhile, pristine, well-centered mint, never-hinged copies boasting original gum and vibrant crimson color routinely fetch anywhere from $3,500 to over $5,000 at major public auctions, adding a genuine 1893 $4 Columbian stamp to your collection represents one of the ultimate achievements in classic American philately. Next up, the 1954 3-cent Statue of Liberty stamp, cataloged as Scott number 1035, issued on April 9, 1954, in Albany, New York. This stamp served as the flagship 3-cent domestic letter rate issue for the celebrated Liberty issue series, which replaced the long-running Prexy series of the 1930s and 1940s, printed in a striking deep purple-violet shade by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. The stamp features a powerful rendering of the Statue of Liberty raising her torch against a glowing backdrop. Arched above Liberty's head are the inspirational words "In God We Trust," making this the very first regular postage stamp in United States history to feature the national motto incorporated into its design. The top banner reads U.S. Postage 3, while the word Liberty spans boldly across the bottom margin. Because billions of these stamps were produced to carry everyday correspondence throughout the 1950s, this design became a familiar staple on letters across America and the world when evaluating market values in today's philatelic marketplace. The immense production numbers mean standard copies are highly affordable and accessible for collectors of all levels. A typical used copy or a standard mint never-hinged single generally trades between 10 cents and 50 cents. Complete mint plate blocks of 4 usually sell for $1 to $3, while official first-day covers from the 1954 Albany release typically bring $2 to $5 depending on the cachet artwork. However, specialized collectors actively seek out rare dry printing varieties, misperforated error copies, or severe color shifts, which can command anywhere from $20 to over $100, whether you are building a complete set of the 1954 Liberty series or collecting patriotic symbols of America. The 3-cent Statue of Liberty stamp is a cornerstone of 20th century postal history. Next up, the 1927 2-cent Surrender of General Burgoyne stamp, commonly known as the Saratoga Sesquicentennial issue, cataloged as Scott number 644, released on August 3, 1927. This issue marked the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Saratoga, widely considered the decisive turning point of the American Revolutionary War, printed in a rich carmine rose shade by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing using flat plate presses. The intricate design is based on John Trumbull's famous 1821 painting titled Surrender of General Burgoyne. The detailed central vignette depicts British General John Burgoyne surrendering his sword to American General Horatio Gates following the defeat at Saratoga in October 1777. Ribbons across the top and side borders commemorate the key battles of Fort Stanwix, Oriskany, and Bennington, while the lower banner highlights the primary event above large numerals too. Over 25 million copies were produced to meet high demand from post offices across the country when evaluating current market values in today's active collector market. Scott number 644 remains an attractive and affordable classic commemorative. A typical used copy with average centering trades between $1 and $3. Nice mint-hinged examples generally sell in the range of $2 to $5. Meanwhile, pristine, well-centered mint never-hinged copies usually command between $6 and $12, with complete mint plate blocks bringing around $30 to $50 depending on condition. Adding this 1927 Saratoga commemorative to your album allows you to collect a vital chapter in American Revolutionary history captured through classic early 20th century engraving. Thank you for watching Stamps Old World UK. If you enjoyed this historical breakdown, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel for more classic stamp overviews, and share your thoughts on this Revolutionary War issue in the comments section below. Welcome to Stamps Old World UK, your ultimate destination for exploring classic British postage stamps, rich postal history, and real market values in United States dollars. In today's video, we are taking a close look at one of the most iconic and recognizable British stamps ever issued, the King George V1 Penny Red Definitive Stamp. This stamp represents a fascinating chapter in 20th century philately, produced during a pivotal era that spanned from the golden age of the British Empire through the turbulent years of the First World War and into the mid-1930s. The stunning visual design of this stamp showcases the refined profile of King George V facing to the left, framed within an elegant oval border. Directly above the monarch's head rests the royal crown, flanked by the classic inscription reading postage revenue. The intricate artwork surrounding the central portrait features delicate laurel leaves on the left side, symbolizing victory and honor, and sturdy oak leaves on the right, representing strength and endurance. At the bottom, the bold value of 1 penny is clearly displayed with the numerical digit 1 set into both lower corners, printed in vibrant shades of red, scarlet, carmine, and deep orange red. This stamp was produced in millions to handle daily correspondence across the United Kingdom. When evaluating what this classic piece of British postal heritage is worth in today's market in US dollars, several crucial factors come into play, including condition, gum quality, paper variety, centering, and watermarks. For a standard used copy featuring a typical postmark or cancellation stamp, the market value usually ranges between 50 cents and $2. These used examples are very accessible for beginners and form the backbone of many vintage collections around the world. If you happen to possess a mint condition stamp that has been previously mounted with a hinge, its market value generally rises to between $3 and $10, depending on how well the stamp is centered and how clean the reverse side appears. For collectors holding an unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with full original gum intact, the value climbs significantly. An unmounted mint King George V1 Penny Red typically trades between $15 and $40 in the current philatelic market, beyond standard issued stamps. Advanced collectors and specialists actively hunt for rare production varieties, unusual color shades, corner control letter blocks, and printing errors. For instance, examples featuring an inverted watermark or a sideways watermark from stamp rolls can command prices from $50 to well over $200. Furthermore, scarce plate varieties, rare shade classifications like deep carmine or bright scarlet, and unmounted mint corner blocks with control numbers can easily reach hundreds of dollars at major stamp auctions. Next up, the classic £1 brown stamp, originally issued in 1948 as part of the famous High Value Arms series, representing the highest postal denomination of its time. This large and stately stamp was primarily created for heavy domestic parcels, overseas freight, and high-value registered mail, making it a true centerpiece in mid-20th century British stamp collecting. The visual composition of this impressive stamp is a masterclass in classic British heraldic art and royal portraiture. At the very center lies an oval frame featuring the left-facing profile of King George VI against a fine cross-hatched background. Surrounding the monarch's portrait is an ornate frame surmounted by the imperial state crown. Adorning the four corners and border artwork are the floral emblems, representing the constituent nations of the United Kingdom: the Tudor rose for England, the thistle for Scotland, the shamrock for Northern Ireland, and the daffodil for Wales. At the bottom, the prominent face value of £1 is prominently marked with currency symbols on both corners and the word postage centered beneath the main frame, printed in rich shades of deep brown and chocolate brown. This stamp exudes prestige and classic royal elegance. When evaluating the market value of the King George VI £1 brown stamp in today's market in US dollars, condition, gum quality, and cancellation style play pivotal roles. For a standard fine used copy with a clean circular date stamp postmark, collectors can generally expect a market value between $8 and $15. If the used copy bears a heavy or messy parcel cancel, the value usually settles closer to $5 to $8, whereas an exceptionally crisp sock-on-the-nose postmark can easily bring $15 to $20 for unused and mint examples. The value increases noticeably due to the original face value and limited preservation over the decades. A mounted mint copy with hinge remnants or light gum disturbance typically sells in the range of $15 to $25. If you are fortunate enough to own a prime unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with pristine original gum, Current market prices generally range between $25 and $45 depending on centering and overall fresh appearance for specialized collectors and investors. Rare intact corner blocks, plate margin singles, and usage on original registered commercial covers demand even higher valuations. A mint never hinged block of 4 can easily fetch between $120 and $200 in today's market, while genuine non-philatelic commercial covers bearing this high-value stamp can reach upwards of $150 at specialist auctions. Next up, the Falkland Islands King George V 1-penny red stamp. Issued during the height of the King George V definitive era between 1912 and 1928, this classic stamp served as a workhorse of domestic and territorial postage across the archipelago during the early 20th century, carrying vital letters and post across the South Atlantic during pivotal historical moments, including the Great War. The visual architecture of this stamp is a beautiful representation of British colonial philatelic design. Across the top arch, a prominent banner reads Falkland Islands in bold capital lettering, while directly underneath, an inner ribbon displays postage revenue. Centered within a fine dotted circular frame sits the left-facing profile portrait of King George V, crowned at the top with the imperial crown. Intricate corner scrollwork decorates the borders, and along the bottom, the face value of 1 penny is clearly displayed with the numerical digit 1 placed inside corner circles on both sides, printed in vivid shades of vermilion, orange red, and deep red. This stamp remains a highly desired piece among colonial and British Empire collectors when analyzing what this Falkland Islands classic is worth in today's philatelic market in US dollars. Valuation depends heavily on paper varieties, watermark types, perforation variations, and overall condition. For a standard used copy featuring a neat, clear circular postmark from Port Stanley or South Georgia, the market value generally ranges between $2 and $6. Used copies with heavy or smudged cancellations typically fall closer to $1 to $2, whereas stamps with exceptionally crisp, central dated cancels can command up to $8 or $10 for collectors seeking unused examples. A typical mounted mint copy with hinge marks or light gum disturbance trades between $3 and $7 in the current market. However, if you possess a prime unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with pristine original gum and sharp centering, the market value rises to between $8 and $15. Specific scarcity factors and shade variations can drive values considerably higher. Rare line perforation varieties or scarce deep orange vermilion printings from the early 1916 production batch can easily realize $30 to $60 in top condition. Furthermore, if this stamp is found franked on a genuine historical cover mailed from the Falklands during World War I or featuring special war stamp overprints, prices at specialist auctions can range from $40 to well over $100. Next up, the Falkland Islands 1938 King George VI 1-pound stamp printed in black and violet. Issued as the highest denomination of the celebrated 1938 to 1950 definitive set, this high-value stamp was primarily created for heavy parcel mail, government dispatches, and high-value colonial transactions. During World War II and the post-war era, the visual composition of this stamp is widely regarded as a masterpiece of British colonial security. Printing by Waterlow and Sons, set in a wide horizontal format. The design features a circular portrait of King George VI in his military tunic occupying the upper left section, balanced by the royal crown and closed in a circular medallion at the upper right. Positioned boldly in the center is the colonial coat of arms of the Falkland Islands, featuring a sea lion and the historical vessel Desire above a banner bearing the motto Desire the Right. Across the top banner, the text reads 1 pound, while the bottom border clearly states Falkland Islands alongside the stylized currency denomination of 1 pound in both lower corners. When determining the market value of the Falkland Islands 1938 1-pound stamp in today's philatelic market in US dollars, condition, centering, and gum preservation play critical roles. For a fine used copy bearing a clear, light circular postmark from Port Stanley or South Georgia, current market values typically range between $40 and $70. If the postmark is exceptionally crisp and well placed, values can easily push toward $80 to $100. whereas heavily canceled or slightly toned examples tend to sell around $30 to $40 for unused collectors. Value depends significantly on the state of the original gum on the reverse side. A hinged or mounted mint copy with previous hinge marks generally sells between $60 and $90 in today's market. However, for a pristine unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with full original white gum, sharp perforations, and strong horizontal centering, market prices consistently command between $90 and $150 for high-end specialists and investors. Intact corner control blocks, plate margin singles, and official overprints offer even greater value. A mint never hinged block of 4 can easily fetch $350 to $600 at auction, while genuine first day covers from 1938 bearing the complete setup to the £1 stamp can reach $800 to over $1,000, whether you specialize in British South Atlantic colonies, King George VI high values, or global definitive issues. This 1938 Falkland Islands £1 stamp remains a crown jewel of 20th century philately. If you enjoyed this detailed valuation script, please hit the like button, subscribe to Stamps Old World UK, and drop a comment below sharing your favorite Falkland Islands stamps. Next up, the Falkland Islands 1950 to £1 black stamp featuring the famous SS Great Britain, issued on April 21, 1952. During the final year of King George VI's reign, this striking monochrome stamp represents the top value of the 1952 definitive set and holds a special place in mid-20th century Commonwealth philately. The visual layout of this stamp is a captivating mix of maritime history and royal portraiture. On the right side of the horizontal design sits a profile portrait of King George VI crowned by the imperial state crown. The central portion of the stamp depicts the historic ocean liner SS Great Britain, designed by Isambard Kingdom Brunel, resting at anchor as a storage hulk in Stanley Harbor. Clearly captioned Hulk of Great Britain, the top banner displays Falkland Islands in bold sans serif lettering, while the bottom border features postage and revenue along with the large £1 denomination marked in both lower corners. Printed entirely in stark black ink, this issue carries an understated and classic beauty when assessing what this 1950 to £1 stamp is worth in today's market in US dollars. Condition and cancellation quality are key factors. For a fine used copy with a clean circular date stamp from Port Stanley, collectors can generally expect a market value between $20 and $40. Examples with heavy or smudged cancellations usually sit around $15 to $20, whereas exceptionally crisp postmarks, especially early dates from 1952, can push values up to $50 for unused and mint condition examples. Prices reflect the relative scarcity of high denomination issues from this period. A mounted mint or lightly hinged copy with minor hinge remnants typically sells between $30 and $50 in current market conditions. However, if you have a pristine unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with full original white gum, sharp perforations, and strong centering, market values consistently range between $55 and $85 for advanced philatelists and specialized collectors. Rare marginal imprint blocks and historical postal usage command much higher figures. A mint never hinged corner block of 4 with plate margin markings can easily fetch $200 to $350 at specialist auctions. Furthermore, genuine first day covers or first overseas airmail envelopes sent from Port Stanley in April 1952 bearing this £1 stamp regularly reach values between $120 and $250, whether you are completing a King George VI definitive collection or focusing on Falkland Islands maritime history. This iconic 1950 to £1 black stamp remains a standout piece. Next up, the Great Britain King George VI 1.5 pence brown stamp, originally issued in July 1937 as part of the iconic Dark Colors definitive series. This 3 halfpence stamp played a central role in everyday British communication, serving as the standard domestic postcard and letter rate during the pre-war era and throughout the challenging years of World War II networks. The visual architecture of this stamp presents a refined, dignified profile of King George VI facing to the left against a deep solid background. Resting majestically above the king's portrait is the imperial state crown. Flanking the sides are the bold vertical words postage on the left and revenue on the right, signifying its dual purpose for mailing and official fiscal transactions. In the bottom corners, delicate floral motifs showcase the iconic botanical emblems of the home nations, including the daffodil and shamrock, framing a central circular medallion that clearly displays the face value of 1.5 pence, printed in rich shades ranging from dark brown to red-brown. This stamp reflects the traditional elegance of wartime British philately when evaluating what this classic 3 halfpence stamp is worth in today's market in US dollars. Condition, centering, and specific printing varieties drive the final price, because hundreds of millions of these stamps were produced for daily mailings. A standard fine used copy with a typical circular cancellation or date stamp is very common, typically holding a market value between 20 cents and 50 cents. Used copies with heavy or smudged cancellations generally carry minimal monetary value, though exceptionally crisp. Light postmarks on well-centered examples can sell for around $1 for collectors seeking unused examples for their collection. A mounted mint copy showing minor hinge remnants or light gum disturbance usually trades between 50 cents and $1.50 in current market conditions. If you own a prime unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with full original gum and strong centering, current market values range between $2 and $5. However, specialized collectors actively look for valuable production varieties that can command much higher prices. Examples issued with a sideways watermark, prepared primarily for automatic stamp vending coils and stamp booklets, can command anywhere from $5 to $15 depending on whether they are mint or used. Additionally, scarce inverted watermark errors, full intact booklet panes, and rare plate flaws can push valuations from $20 to well over $50 at specialist philatelic auctions. Next up, the Great Britain King George VI 1 shilling Bister Brown stamp. Issued in May 1937 as part of the celebrated King George VI Dark Colors Definitive Series. This 1 shilling stamp was designed for heavier domestic packet mail, registered letters, and overseas airmail rates during the late 1930s and through the wartime years. The art and layout of this stamp stand out as a masterwork of 20th century British stamp design, positioned inside a distinctive diamond frame. The left-facing profile of King George VI rests against a solid, dark background, surmounted by the imperial state crown. The angled upper borders prominently display the words postage on the left and revenue on the right, signifying its dual postal and fiscal authority. In each corner, regional floral emblems decorate the borders, including the rose for England, the thistle for Scotland, and the shamrock for Northern Ireland, framing the clearly stated face value of 1 shilling centered at the bottom, printed in a rich Bister brown shade. This stamp embodies the refined elegance of King George VI's initial definitive release when determining what this classic 1 shilling stamp is worth in today's market in US dollars. Factor in condition, postmark quality, centering, and perforation freshness. Because this stamp served higher postage rates, it was printed in far smaller quantities than the everyday penny or 3 halfpence issues. A standard used copy with a clean, circular postmark typically carries a market value between 50 cents and $2. Used copies with heavy or smudged cancellations trade at lower prices, while examples featuring exceptional, crisp dated postmarks can sell for $3 to $5 for collectors seeking unused examples. A mounted mint copy showing previous hinge marks or light gum disturbance generally trades between $3 and $6. If you happen to possess a prime unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with full original gum and sharp centering, current market values consistently range between $5 and $10. Specialized philatelists also search for specific production variations that carry increased collector value. Examples featuring a sideways or inverted watermark prepared for stamp booklets or vending coils can command prices between $15 and $30 depending on condition. Furthermore, pristine corner control blocks of 4 cylinder blocks and complete intact booklet panes can reach $40 to $80 at specialist philatelic auctions. Next up, the Great Britain Queen Elizabeth II 2.5 pence red stamp from the iconic Wilding Definitive Series. Originally issued on December 5, 1952, shortly after her accession to the throne. This 2.5 pence stamp served as the standard domestic letter rate across the United Kingdom throughout much of the 1950s. The elegant design of this stamp features the celebrated photographic portrait of young Queen Elizabeth II taken by Dorothy Wilding. depicting the monarch wearing the historic girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. Enclosing the royal portrait is a central oval wreath border composed of laurel leaves. In the upper left and right corners, the royal cipher initials E and R are prominently set. The bottom left corner showcases a stylized floral bouquet incorporating the rose, thistle, shamrock, and daffodil, while the bottom right corner displays the face value of 2.5 pence set within a circle. Beneath the frame, the words postage revenue highlight its dual postal and fiscal authority, all printed in a vibrant scarlet red color. When evaluating what this iconic wilding stamp is worth in today's market in US dollars, several important factors come into play, including watermarks, graphite lines, phosphor bands, and overall condition. Because hundreds of millions of these stamps were produced to handle daily post across the country, a standard fine used copy with a typical circular date stamp is extremely common, generally carrying a market value between 10 cents and 30 cents. Used copies with heavy or smudged cancellations hold nominal monetary value, though exceptionally clean postmarks on well-centered copies can sell for around 50 cents. For collectors looking for unused examples, a mounted mint copy showing minor hinge marks or light gum disturbance typically trades between 30 cents and $1 in current market conditions. If you own a prime unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with pristine original gum, sharp centering, and fresh color, market values range between $1 and $3. However, specialized collectors actively hunt for valuable paper, watermark, and experimental printing varieties within the Wilding series. Stamps issued with the earlier Tudor crown or Street Edwards crown watermarks command higher interest, while those with inverted watermarks or sideways watermarks from booklet panes can range from $5 to $15. Even more sought after are the experimental versions with black graphite lines on the reverse or phosphor bands introduced for modern automated mail sorting, which can reach values between $10 and $40 depending on the specific era or variety. Next up, the Great Britain Queen Victoria 1881 1-penny lilac stamp. Originally issued in July 1881, this landmark issue replaced the famous penny red and served as the standard everyday workhorse stamp across the United Kingdom for over 20 years, remaining in continuous production right up until the end of Queen Victoria's reign in 1901. The graphic layout of this stamp represents a major milestone in British postal and fiscal design. At the center sits a refined left-facing profile portrait of young Queen Victoria against a fine horizontally lined background, wearing her signature imperial diadem. Encircling the portrait is an oval border bearing the prominent inscription postage and inland revenue across the top and side, with the face value of 1 penny clearly stated along the bottom. This wording was particularly significant because it was the first British stamp designed to pay both postal fees and official revenue duties, such as receipt taxes. The outer rectangular border is decorated with delicate corner dots, which help philatelists identify the two major printing varieties known as die 1 with 14 dots and die 2 with 16 dots, printed in distinctive shades of purple, lilac, mauve, and deep violet. Hundreds of millions of these stamps were produced to power the Victorian postal network. When evaluating what this iconic Victorian stamp is worth in today's market in US dollars, condition, postmark style, and the specific die variety play key roles. Because die 2 with 16 dots was printed in massive quantities, a standard used copy with a typical barred numeral cancellation or circular postmark is extremely common, generally holding a market value between $1 and $3. Used copies with heavy or smudged cancellations usually sell for around 50 cents to $1, while examples featuring exceptional, crisp dated postmarks or clean town cancels can command $3 to $5. For collectors interested in unused examples, market values depend heavily on gum condition and centering. A mounted mint or lightly hinged copy with minor hinge remnants typically trades between $20 and $40 in current market conditions. If you happen to possess a prime unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with full original white gum, fresh color, and well-balanced margins, market values generally range between $60 and $120. Specialized collectors also look for the earlier die 1 variety with 14 dots in each corner, which was printed in much smaller quantities during 1881 and carries higher value. A fine used die 1 penny lilac can range from $15 to $30, while a pristine mint example of die 1 can easily bring $150 to $300. Furthermore, scarce production errors, such as inverted watermarks, official overprints like Army Official or IR Official, and complete intact sheets or control blocks can reach several $100s at specialist philatelic auctions. Next up, the Great Britain King George VI 1 penny blue stamp. Originally issued in July 1937 as part of the initial Dark Colors Definitive series, this 1 penny stamp was extensively used across the United Kingdom for printed paper rates, postcards, and as a supplementary value on heavier domestic and international correspondence. The artistic design of this stamp features the clean, dignified profile portrait of King George VI facing to the left set against a solid, dark background. Positioned directly above the monarch's head is the imperial state crown, flanked on the left by a Tudor rose and on the right by a Scottish thistle. The left side of the frame displays the word postage in strong vertical lettering, while the right side displays revenue, indicating its dual postal and fiscal validity. At the bottom corners, delicate floral representations of the daffodil for Wales and the shamrock for Northern Ireland surround a central circular medallion that clearly displays the face value of 1 penny, printed in a rich, vibrant shade of ultramarine blue. This issue reflects the classic aesthetic of pre-war and wartime British philately when determining what this classic 1 penny blue stamp is worth in today's market in US dollars. Factor in condition, postmark quality, centering, and specific printing varieties, because tens of millions of these stamps were issued for daily commercial and personal mail. A standard fine used copy with a typical circular postmark or wavy machine cancellation is extremely common, generally carrying a market value between 10 cents and 30 cents. Used copies with heavy or smudged cancellations hold nominal monetary value, though exceptionally crisp. Central dated cancels can fetch up to 50 cents for collectors seeking unused examples. A mounted mint copy showing minor hinge marks or light gum disturbance typically trades between 30 cents and $1 in current market conditions. If you happen to possess a prime unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with full original gum and strong centering, current market values consistently range between $1 and $3. Specialized collectors also look for specific production variations that carry increased collector value. Examples featuring a sideways watermark, issued for automatic stamp vending coils and stamp booklets, can command prices between $2 and $6 depending on condition. Inverted watermark errors on this specific issue are relatively rare and can range from $15 to $30. Furthermore, intact booklet panes, cylinder blocks of 6, and rare plate flaws can fetch up to $40 or more at specialist philatelic auctions. Next up, the Great Britain 1953 Queen Elizabeth to Coronation 1 shilling and 3 pence green stamp, issued on June 3, 1953, to celebrate the official coronation of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at Westminster Abbey. This stamp was designed by the acclaimed artist Edmund de Lac and served as an important airmail rate stamp across the Commonwealth. The visual layout of this stamp stands out as one of the most artistic and unique designs in modern British philately. Positioned at the center is a front-facing portrait of young Queen Elizabeth II seated in her full coronation regalia, wearing the imperial state crown, holding the royal scepter in her right hand and the sovereign's orb in her left. Flanking the sovereign's head are the royal initials E and R. The background features an ornate lattice pattern intercut with floral emblems, including the rose, thistle, shamrock, and daffodil. The word postage runs vertically along the left side, revenue runs vertically on the right, and the denomination of 1 shilling and 3 pence is displayed on both sides of the central figure, printed in a deep, rich shade of dark green. This issue captures the ceremonial grandeur of the historic 1953 coronation when evaluating what this 1953 coronation stamp is worth in today's market in US dollars. Overall condition, gum quality, and cancellation style play key roles. Because over 8 million copies of this specific value were sold, standard used copies featuring a typical circular postmark remain relatively accessible, generally carrying a market value between $1 and $3. Used copies with heavy or smudged cancellations hold nominal monetary value, though exceptionally crisp. Central dated postmarks can sell for $4 to $6 for collectors looking for unused examples. A mounted mint copy showing minor hinge marks or light gum disturbance typically trades between $2 and $5 in current market conditions. If you happen to possess a prime unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with full original white gum, sharp centering, and fresh dark green color. Current market values consistently range between $4 and $8. Specialized philatelists also hunt for specific plate flaws and postal history items associated with this issue. For instance, a known plate variety known as the clover leaf flaw near the word revenue can push valuations to $15 or $20. Furthermore, genuine first-day covers postmarked on June 3, 1953, or complete 4-value coronation sets on official souvenir covers can fetch anywhere from $20 to $50 at specialist philatelic auctions. Next up, the Great Britain 1961 Post Office Savings Bank Centenary 3p purple stamp, issued on August 28, 1961. To celebrate 100 years of the Post Office Savings Bank established in 1861. This 3p stamp was designed by Mary Goman and served as the standard UK domestic letter rate during the early 1960s. The graphical composition of this stamp showcases a delightful mid-century modern aesthetic, centered around the theme of thrift and saving. On the right half of the horizontal layout sits a Dorothy Wilding photographic profile portrait of young Queen Elizabeth II wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. The left half features a stylized white tree of thrift containing a red squirrel collecting acorns, symbolic of saving for the future, along with an owl at the far right representing wisdom. Across the top banner, the text reads Post Office Savings Bank, while the lower right displays the centenary dates 1861 to 1961. The bottom left corner clearly presents the face value of 3p, all rendered against a deep purple background. When assessing what this 1961 Post Office Savings Bank stamp is worth in today's market in US dollars, condition, printing method, and phosphor variations drive collector interest, because millions of these commemorative stamps were produced for daily correspondence. A standard fine used copy with a typical circular cancellation or date stamp is extremely common, generally carrying a market value between 20 cents and 50 cents. Used copies with heavy or smudged cancellations hold minimal monetary value, though exceptionally clean. Well-centered postmarks can sell for around $1 for collectors looking for unused examples. A mounted mint copy showing minor hinge marks or light gum disturbance typically trades between 30 cents and $1 in current market conditions. If you possess a prime unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with pristine original white gum and strong centering, current market values range between 50 cents and $2. However, specialized philatelists actively seek out specific technical and printing varieties from this issue. This stamp was printed using two different printing presses, the Timson and Thistle machines, which show minor shade and perforation variations. Additionally, versions issued with experimental phosphor bands used for automatic mail sorting can command slightly higher prices ranging from $2 to $5. Exceptional production error varieties, such as missing colors like the orange omitted error, are major rarities that can fetch thousands of dollars at specialist auctions. Next up, the Great Britain Queen Elizabeth II 1.5p green Wilding stamp, first issued on December 5, 1952. This stamp was among the very first set of definitive stamps released during the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, serving as an essential workhorse rate for domestic printed paper, unsealed greeting cards, and postcards throughout the 1950s. The artistic layout of this stamp represents a defining classic of 20th century stamp design. At the center is a striking three-quarter profile photographic portrait of young Queen Elizabeth II taken by renowned society photographer Dorothy Wilding, depicting the monarch wearing the historic Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. Surrounding the sovereign's portrait is an intricate, circular floral wreath featuring the four national floral emblems of the United Kingdom: the Tudor rose for England, the thistle for Scotland, the daffodil for Wales, and the shamrock for Northern Ireland. At the bottom, the words postage and revenue are centered between two distinct corner boxes displaying the face value of 1.5p, all rendered in a deep, crisp shade of dark green. When evaluating what this iconic 1.5p green stamp is worth in today's market in US dollars, condition, gum quality, postmark clarity, and technical varieties are key factors, because hundreds of millions of these stamps were printed and distributed across post offices. Standard used copies with everyday wavy machine cancels or smudged date stamps are extremely abundant, generally carrying a market value between 10 cents and 30 cents. Used examples with light, well-centered circular postmarks can command up to 50 cents to $1 for collectors seeking unused stamps. A mounted mint copy showing minor hinge marks or light gum disturbance typically trades between 30 cents and $1 in current market conditions. If you have a pristine unmounted mint or mint never hinged example featuring full original gum and sharp centering, current market values consistently range between $1 and $3. Specialized philatelists actively look for specific production and watermark variations that increase collector interest and value. Examples featuring a sideways watermark produced for vending machine coils and stamp booklets typically range from $2 to $5 depending on condition. Inverted watermark errors on this issue generally fetch between $5 and $15. Furthermore, intact booklet panes of 6 or notable plate varieties such as the extra bud on daffodil stem or extra jewel flaws can easily command between $15 and $45 at specialist auctions. Next up, the Great Britain Queen Elizabeth to Pence red-brown Wilding stamp, first issued on December 5, 1952, as part of the initial release of Queen Elizabeth to definitive issues. This 2p stamp played a vital role in everyday British mail, covering printed paper rates, postcards, and supplementary postal charges throughout the 1950s. The artistic design of this stamp showcases the classic studio photograph of young Queen Elizabeth II taken by renowned portrait photographer Dorothy Wilding, depicting Her Majesty wearing the historic Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. Enclosing the royal portrait is an intricate circular floral wreath, composed of the 4 national emblems of the United Kingdom: the Tudor rose for England, the thistle for Scotland, the daffodil for Wales, and the shamrock for Northern Ireland. Along the bottom, the words postage and revenue are centered between 2 numerical value indicators clearly stating 2p, all printed in a distinctive deep red-brown shade. When evaluating what this 2p Wilding stamp is worth in today's market in US dollars, condition, postmark clarity, gum quality, and paper or watermark varieties dictate the price. Because hundreds of millions of these stamps were printed for daily mailings, a standard fine used copy with a typical circular postmark or wavy machine cancel is extremely common, generally holding a market value between 10 cents and 30 cents. Used examples with heavy or smudged cancellations carry nominal value, while exceptionally crisp, central dated postmarks can sell for around 50 cents to $1 for collectors seeking unused examples. A mounted mint copy showing light hinge marks or minor gum disturbance typically trades between 30 cents and $1 in current market conditions. If you own a prime unmounted mint or mint never hinged example featuring full original gum and sharp centering, market values consistently range between $1 and $3. Specialized philatelists actively look for specific production variations that carry increased value. Copies with a sideways watermark prepared for stamp booklets or automatic vending coils can command prices between $2 and $6 depending on condition. Inverted watermark errors on this denomination typically range from $5 to $15. Additionally, versions with experimental graphite lines on the reverse or phosphor bands introduced for automated mail sorting, as well as intact booklet panes of 6, can reach values between $10 and $35 at specialist auctions. Next up, the Great Britain King Edward VII 4p green and chocolate brown stamp, originally issued in January 1902 as part of the celebrated De La Rue Definitive series. This 4p stamp served primarily on heavier inland letters, parcel posts, and registered international mail throughout the Edwardian era. The artistic composition of this stamp reflects classic Edwardian elegance and intricate bicolor surface printing. Set within a central circular medallion is the profile portrait of King Edward VII facing left, printed in deep green against a fine green background. Surrounding the sovereign's head is an ornate frame containing 4 corner circles, each displaying the face value of 4D in a distinct chocolate brown shade. The imperial state crown crowns the top of the central oval, while delicate scrolls along the sides bear the text postage on the left and revenue on the right, highlighting its dual postal and fiscal authority. When evaluating what this classic Edwardian bicolor stamp is worth in today's market in US dollars, condition, paper variety, and postmark quality play vital roles. Standard used examples featuring typical heavy circular parcel cancels or heavy postmarks generally range in value between $3 and $8. However, fine used copies with crisp, central dated postmarks CDS or light strikes regularly command between $10 and $25 depending on the specific paper shade. For collectors seeking unused stamps, a mounted mint copy showing minor hinge marks or light gum disturbance typically trades between $15 and $35 in current market conditions. If you possess a prime unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with pristine original gum, sharp centering, and rich original bicolor contrast, market values range between $40 and $100 plus for standard ordinary paper, with specific chalk surfaced paper varieties fetching even higher premiums. Specialized philatelists also pay close attention to paper variations, such as the 1906 transition to chalky paper SG238, as well as rare watermark errors. Copies with inverted watermarks or official departmental overprints such as Board of Education or Admiralty official are exceptionally rare and can easily command several hundred to thousands of dollars at specialist auctions. Next up, the Great Britain Queen Victoria 1887 3-pence purple on yellow stamp, issued on January 1, 1887, as part of the famous Jubilee series commemorating the 50th anniversary of Queen Victoria's accession to the throne. This 3-pence stamp served heavily on inland parcel rates, registered domestic mail, and overseas foreign letter post. The artistic design of this stamp showcases the intricate craftsmanship of De La Rue's surface printed issues. At the center is a classic profile portrait of the aging Queen Victoria facing left, set within an oval frame against a dark background. Surrounding the sovereign's head is an elaborate ornate border with classical corner scrollwork, stylized foliage leaves below the central oval, and two distinct side panels clearly displaying the denomination of 3D. The bottom banner reads Postage and Revenue, indicating its dual postal and fiscal validity. Printed in deep purple ink on distinctively colored yellow paper, this stamp remains one of the most eye-catching issues of the late Victorian period. When assessing what this Victorian 3-pence stamp is worth in today's market in US dollars, condition, centering, postmark clarity, and color freshness play critical roles, because millions of these stamps were produced and widely used across the British Empire. A standard fine used copy with a typical heavy circular cancel or parcel postmark generally carries a market value between $1 and $3. However, exceptionally fine used examples featuring a light, clean central dated postmark CDS can command between $4 and $8 for collectors seeking unused examples. A mounted mint copy showing minor hinge marks or light gum disturbance typically trades between $10 and $20 in current market conditions. If you happen to possess a prime unmounted mint or mint never hinged example with full original gum, rich purple printing, and bright yellow paper, market values range between $35 and $50. Specialized philatelists also search for subtle shade variations, such as the deep purple on yellow variety SG203, as well as rare watermark errors and official overprints. Examples featuring inverted watermarks or departmental overprints such as OW, official, or govt parcels are significant rarities that can easily fetch several hundred to over $1,000 at specialist auctions. Whether you are completing a specialized 1887 Jubilee set or building a comprehensive Queen Victoria collection, this 3-pence purple on yellow stamp stands as a classic highlight of late 19th century British philately. If you enjoyed this detailed market breakdown, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to Stamps Old World UK for more philatelic insights, and drop a comment below sharing your favorite Victorian stamps. Thank you for watching, and join us next time as we continue exploring vintage postages from around the globe.